Hello, I'm Stephanie Tobin. This is the Excel skills beyond the basics again, and we're looking at functions 1. Functions 1 will slowly introduce you to some date and time functions. They're quite useful and a bit of fun as well. You can find out how many days old you are. And also, so we're starting with some other functions, HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. I know the XLOOKUP's out there with regards to 365, but we'll probably look at that at a later date. But we'll start with these ones first. Thank you. And it should look like this. If it looks different, then you've obviously got the wrong set of files, so have another look. I'm going to start nice and slowly. I'm going to do the date and time. We're going to have a look at that area. Some lookups. Some statistical mathematical functions, etc., etc. And the one at the end is just a syllabus area that you can, let's have a look at it together. It just shows you what's covered in this syllabus, so that, I'll just bring it down for you, so that you're very clear about what functions are being used, and you can see some things are being said about not round, not rank, not lookup, etc. But we'll have a look at this as we're going through as well. So I'm just going to close that, but that's always there for you to have a look at. So if we open up the date and time workbook, I've also placed that at the front of this, the syllabus, so it's there for you to see. If we just have a quick look, you can see the sort of ones we're going through today. And you'll notice towards the end, if we just come up, we've already dealt with the 3D reference sum function, and we've already looked at the mixed references in the previous videos. So we've already started to chip away at this. So let's click on the time and date. This is a bit of a fun exercise, but also has a point to it as well. The bright green, I'm afraid, is to bring your attention to those areas. I know it's in your face, but it helps you to remember. In here we have what they call the today function, which will return the current date automatically. So that's important to remember. So if they ask you to pop a date in a particular cell and it's updated automatically, that's the function that you need to be using. If you're including the time, however, then you need to use the now. That's quite simple. Down here we've got inserts current date, control key and semicolon. However, be aware this does not update automatically, so don't go popping it in like that. Okay, there's some little functions here about time, etc., but the ones in green are the ones we want to concentrate on. This is my date of birth. So you could put your date of birth in there and find out how many days old you are, and you can see that I'm pretty old, doing okay considering. So for a bit of fun you can do things like that. So these date and time functions are quite useful. Another area, if you use something like a weekday, you know, if you're using a function that comes back with a number, then be aware that you can, on things like weekdays and that, you can, if we just format this differently, you may have done this already, but those of you that may not have, and you can customize it, and you could put in something like DD, which would bring up or another D, and OK, and it comes up with a Tuesday. If we right click again and pop another D in, and then you'll get the full Tuesday. So sometimes you'll use a function to bring back information, and then you may need to customize that format. This one extracts the day, but these are the two that we really need to concentrate on, as well as the automatic date and automatically updated time, date and time. So this one's a typical one. They all follow pretty much the same format: equal, month, and then the first instance in the autofill. So the first one in the list, and obviously the autofill fills down the rest. So that's how we'd work it. If you wanted to draw a year out of F4, that's what we're doing when we're dealing with this one here. So it's drawing out these figures, and it's making it into a nice 1961, whereas when you It's coming from the cell there rather than that. Okay, so that's quite straightforward. When we look at formula, the formula tab, what it's getting at is the way that you can flip between formula and values. So if you hold the control key down, I have mentioned this in previous videos, but if I haven't said anything about this one, if you haven't dropped into the other ones. So you're holding the control key down with your thumb, or your other hand if you wish, another finger, and then you can tap the key above the tab key on your keyboard. And when you do that, it jumps between showing formula and showing values. So when it shows formula, if we tap it again and we have a look at the formula tab at the top, this lights up. So it's showing formula. That's the ribbon way of showing formula. So using a ribbon method to show formula, and the one I'm doing on the keys is the shortcut key method to showing formula and value. And in the test, they will say to you, show formula using a shortcut key. So you need to be aware of it. Just another way, another one that you can use, but as far as I know, it's not part of the test questions, but who knows, so we best probably cover it, is another way by going through the options, the file options, Excel options, and into the advanced tab. And if you tick that, that will also tick this. And if you do control shortcut keys, so there's 3 different ways. So this is a way of doing it with regard to options. That way is doing it with regard to the ribbon, and the shortcut keys obviously is the one that generally is expected in the exam. Okay, so we're going to close this down. That's all we're doing on that one, just a little introduction to the area. I'm going to start doing some of the functions. Okay, so let's look at the lookups workbook. Let's open that one up. We're going to keep this simple. Some of you may not have done very many lookups, so we'll start nice and simple, and we'll keep it that way so it suits the exam as well. So you may be asked to use a lookup. A simple lookup has been used in the past quite a lot, but it's very simplistic if it's just an equal lookup, and it needs to have things in a certain order. However, in this exam, you will be asked to use a lookup, and you decide whether you use a HLOOKUP or a VLOOKUP. So you have to use one of those options. You cannot use a lookup. Okay, so here's some examples. This is the area here in D8 that we're trying to bring back a value that meets. So we've got a value and we want to find out what meets it. So the return the value that meets it. So in other words, if we bought 5 items, we would get 10% discount. If we bought 20 items, we get 25% discount. So you can see that you've got the number bought across the top and the discount that goes with it. This is a very small table. In real life, there could be a vast amount of data that if you were using a HLOOKUP, then the function would look across horizontally back and forth and match those values. Okay, so it would be looking to match those values horizontally. If you're using a table that goes down and you'll use a vertical, so a VLOOKUP, will look up and down vertically to fill all of those associated values that go with this. So you've got the number bought and whatever discount that goes with it. The other thing as we start to do the formulas, you'll notice this 1 and 2 that I've popped in here. These are the column index numbers, so we need to be aware of that. So 1, we've got the first instance. We've only got 1 instance in this case, so that's going to be the D4, so we bought 5. Where we put our answer, so where we put the function in, whether it's H or V. And then we've got what they call the table of array, which is the table with the reference and values in. And then we've got in this case, the row index numbers, and in this case, the column index numbers. So let's have a look how that all comes together. So let's go to the next one. We're going to do the HLOOKUP. I've popped in the spreadsheets, each one. the FS function, when I talk about that, or the insert function, I'm talking about using this tool here, the insert function. So this can make life a lot easier when you're learning functions, but not everybody does. We'll do it both ways, and then you can see which one suits you. And you may even have another way. There's lots of ways to do this. So the way that I'm going to do it, I'm going to be doing a horizontal one. We're looking at this one. So we're doing a HLOOKUP. So I'm going to type in HLOOKUP. It comes up here. I can double click on that, and that way I don't have to worry about spelling it incorrectly. So believe me, people do spell functions incorrectly, and you'll get an error back with a name or something on it. So the next thing we do is the first instance. In this case, it's the only instance. That's the one we're looking at. We're looking for the number bought 5 and what discount we will get. Okay, then we're going to put in a comma. We pick up the table of array. That's the whole table there. And we have to absolute it because we don't want the table to go, when we autofill, if we did, we wouldn't want it to go up anywhere else. So if we brought it down here, that table would move down there. But because we've only got one instance, we can actually get away with it on this one. So we don't need to, so we can do a comma. Then what we need next, I'm following along here, is the row index number. So wherever that table of array is in the spreadsheet, the top row is 1 and the second row is 2. And we're looking along the 2. So I'll pop a 2 in there, close the bracket and enter. So we get 10% if we bought that. Let's do it another way. So we'll delete that, equal HLOOKUP. At this stage, you can bring up the insert function feature. In exams, you might feel more comfortable doing it this way. So our lookup value is the number bought. Our table array, make sure that you do click down onto the next one. It's very easy to forget. Pick up your table of array. Whoops, do it again if it does that. So override it. Good. We don't need to absolute because we're only doing one instance. And then the row index number is 1, 2. So we're looking at the 2. We pop the 2 in there. It's already come back with the result. And it tells us what the things are. So if we clicked in the first one, the value to be found in the first row of the table. In this one, it says it's the table of text numbers, whichever the data is, so the table array. And this one, it says the row number in the table, which the matching value should be returned. Okay, so when we OK, we get the answer. Let's do the next one and do it in a VLOOKUP this time. Okay, same thing again. You can do it as well, I'm sure, once you've seen it once. Let's do it with the paste function. Those of you who want to type it in, you can. So our first one is our only one is the lookup value. Our table of array this time is this one. It's a vertical table. We don't need to absolute. I've asked the question there because it's a 1. We're not auto-filling this number bought. Our column index number is 1, 2. So we've got the 2 again. And then we don't put in a false. Some people put in a false because then you get an exact match. In the exam, it's not necessary because you will always have an exact match. But in the real world, if you want to do it, please do. It's useful. If you don't put a false in for an exact match, then it will bring up the next one. And sometimes people don't want that in their information to come back with that. So be aware of that. So then we've got that again. Let's look at some more examples. This is a diagnostic example. Now the diagnostic currently asks you to use a lookup. So I'm here to say to you, it may ask you to use a lookup, as in this one here in the exam, but the syllabus clearly states that you have to use a V or a H. So if we were going to use this lookup, I'll just escape, and when I autofill down, you notice how this moves down as well. All the way down here now, etc. That's because once it's passed here, as I'm autofilling down, you can see that it's going, this table is moving as well. So I autofill from James Miller and then it autofills down. Let's use a control and grave accent, the one above the tab. And you can see how it goes F8, F9, 10, etc. Let's go back to values, hold the control key, hit the key above the tab again. So in this instance, the first thing you would do would be to absolute the table, but we need to make sure we're in the very first one. So I was down here. You need to make sure that you're in the very first one of the instances. Remember that F4 function key at the top of your keyboard, tap that, absolute it completely, and then a lookup would work. It stayed on the table of array no matter how much I've autofilled. It works. But once again, this is an exam whereby you need to use a V or a H. This table is vertical. It's not going across the rows. So we could pop a V in front of it. We know that when you use a VLOOKUP or a HLOOKUP, we have these column index numbers or row index numbers. So we need to use a 2, so comma and 2. If we look at this through the fx function, the insert function, that's how it looks. So let's do it that way as well. So I'm going to take that back, escape, and I'm going to go into the, so let's just put the, whoops, let's put the V in front of it first, otherwise it doesn't know what function we're doing. And go into the fx, now we can see what we've done. So if I hadn't put that in, I'd put in the first instance, so it's B5, which is this one here, west. The table of array, I would pick up there. And I can absolute it straight away. If I stay at the end of it and hit the function key, the F4 function key, it will absolute it. If, however, I move into the next one, I'll have to highlight it to absolute it, so be careful. And then I've got a number 2, come back with James Miller, OK, and then when you autofill, it autofills with a VLOOKUP. A lookup works on this because everything is in the same order, east, north, south, west. So after James Miller, it fits a simple sequence. However, in the next example, diagnostic example 2, they don't meet that, then you need to do something to that. Once again, you have a go. We're going to change this to make sure that it fits the exam and it works. There you go. Okay, there's one here. I want you to have a look at this one. You've got a couple of instances that you're going to have to autofill. You're doing the first instance. You're going to find out the discount, and you're also going to find out the extra discount. So remember where it is, 1, 2, 3. So think about that when you do it. Okay, so I'll do this one for you, and you can do the other one yourself, just so that you get the gist of it. So remember, it's a vertical table, so I'm going to do a VLOOKUP. My first instance is going to be the D4, I bought 20, comma. I have my table of array, which I will absolute because I'm going to autofill down here to get those other values. So absolute, comma, and I'm looking at extra discounts. So I count 1, 2, 3. So actually I need a 3. And then close off. Don't need a false because there will be an exact. Enter, and then I can autofill the rest. And I can check. So if I've got 5, if I bought 5, yes, that's correct. If I bought 10, yes, that's correct.